Now it's time for Inspirational Women, and my guest, Karin Slaughter, a best-selling author who's called one of the world's most popular storytellers. She's been on the New York Times bestsellers list more than 20 times. She's also an international bestseller. Her Will Trent series is, as you can likely tell, the source for the hit TV series Will Trent, starring Ramon Rodriguez. I'm literally counting the days until the third season begins, and it feels way too far away. So a good way to fill the time is to read Karin's newest release, which is a Will Trent novel, This Is Why We Lied. Karin's storytelling skills are in high gear as she takes us on a twisting and wild ride that lasts only a few days and is filled with surprises and also great insights about the human condition. So, here's Karin Slaughter to provide some other parts of the story. Karin Slaughter, good morning. Thank you so greatly for being with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Well, here's another, what will I call it, sort of gut-wrenching, heart-tearing, whiplash kind of new novel, a crime thriller from you with this newest This Is Why We Lied. And oh my gosh, you never fail to really put us into new circumstances and give us all these, real tight feelings in our whole body.
Well, thank you. That's what I absolutely go for. This is the first time I've ever written what's called a locked room mystery, where you have a limited number of characters and a murder, kind of in that great Agatha Christie setup. But I took a couple of detours from her usual thing, including having someone who dies who you don't necessarily think deserves it.
Yes, exactly. But then again, what would the story be if that didn't happen, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly. The thing about writing these sorts of stories is there's so many familiar tropes, but when I look back at the Agatha Christie's that I read when I was a kid, I thought, wow, she really invented this. We call them tropes now, but she was the first person who actually structured stories this way, and it was a lot more difficult than I had thought because she just made it look so easy.
I was reading the book. I was reading This Is Why We Lied, but I was also kind of like out of my body analyzing your writing it. And how did you come to these things and wondering like, oh my gosh, there's such a detail because it's condensed. It happens within really just a couple of days, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, if you ever have a crime, you want Will Trent on the case because he solves them usually within 450 pages. It's amazing how well he does. But I did want to write it fast-moving and have twists and turns that just made your heart stop at times, but that always made you want to keep turning the pages.
Well, you succeeded. Because as I was reading, I was thinking, this really feels like I'm going down a mountain road that has all these twists and turns, and I'm having to whip this way and turn back this way, and it's just, hairpin turns. It really is so gripping and so great, and it is definitely a page turner. You have succeeded on all accounts, Karin.
Well, thank you very much. I've done my job then.
You have. And so the thing is, as you kept writing, I'm just curious as to how long it took to write this book.
Well, this is my 12th Will Trent book, so I've had a little bit of practice over the years, and it doesn't take as long as it used to. Usually it's about 6 months, and I spend a lot of time thinking about the book, what's the structure going to be like? What are the characters going to do? That sort of thing. So I would say all in, it usually takes a year to a year and a half.
And that was true for this one?
Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you that my husband and I do love to listen to crime thrillers. We love the Will Trent series. And one of the things we do is we like to try and figure it out beforehand, see if we really can tell who did it. So as I was reading This Is Why We Lied, I kept thinking, okay, I think it's pointing in this direction. And then, Oh, no, it isn't. Okay, here's the other suspect. And it's amazing how you were able to just build that in and have me, at least, but I imagine most readers would have that sense of who on earth is guilty here.
Well, that's the fun of writing these novels, is thinking about the reader thinking, oh, right, I'm sure this person is guilty, and then proving that they don't know exactly what they're talking about. There's always a cat and mouse with it. And I think this book lends itself more to that than maybe something that's more straightforward like a serial killer, because it's clear you've got this remote, very exotic mountain lodge that you have to hike into. You've got the staff, you've got guests, you've got a very toxic family that runs the place called the McAlpines. And so you know who the suspects are, right? So it gives you would think, an advantage to have such a limited number. But it's exactly what you said. It just allows me as the writer to have fun with fooling you into thinking you're right.
So out of curiosity, as you started to write, did you know who the killer would be?
Absolutely. Every book I write, I always know who the bad person is. And I think that's important for me because I play fair with my readers. I want you to, when you get to the end, instead of saying, what the heck just happened, to say, oh my gosh, it was there all along, I didn't realize it. Or if you're really clever, which I'm usually not when I'm reading a book, but if you figure out who the bad guy is, then you want to keep reading because you want to figure out how the detectives find out.
Precisely. And that's what's also, in quotations, it's entertaining in that way, is following them along and seeing what their thought pattern is. Of course, we have more information than they do, so I think that, I must be clever here because I have this awareness. But no, it doesn't work that way.
No, if I've done my job right, it won't.
You did your job right. Of course you did. You have, over 20 thrillers to your name, and I'm grateful that you are so passionate about continuing to write them.
Absolutely. That's one thing I'm very conscious of, even on a bad day of writing or when something's difficult. I just keep reminding myself this is the job I've always wanted to do. I've wanted to do it since I was a child, and a lot of people would love to be in my place, so I'm just grateful every day that I can do it.
Well, you obviously are so talented and have a way with words and just the way you create these pictures and pull us in. I mean, there's nothing other to say than you are so talented. And thank you for really responding to that and continuing to give us these really captivating books.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you for reading them.
I do love them. It really is incredible. And so, Karin, as you were writing these books, did you have a sense that there would be a possibility with Will Trent that it would make it to the TV screen?
Well, I did. When you're a writer and you have a successful series, there's a lot of people who knock on your door from Hollywood. And fortunately, I'm in a position where I could say no if I didn't like their idea for the series. And at one point, I just said to my agent, I don't want to talk to anybody anymore. This is not going to happen. But I met a woman named Liz Heldens who worked on Friday Night Lights and was very successful with Friday Night Lights. And she really loves the books, and she had such wonderful questions about the characters, and she knew their backstories, and she was really into capturing Will and Sarah and Faith and Amanda in the way that they were on the page. And she brought a guy named Dan Thompson, who's the showrunner. And I have to say, it's been such a pleasant experience. They've included me in everything. Sometimes I'll be on the treadmill and I'll get a text saying, hey, what's the deal with Amanda's mother? Tell us a little bit more about that. They use me as a resource, which is great because,
yes.
I wrote the book, so I know a lot about these characters. And I couldn't be more pleased with what they're doing. I think the show is a lot of fun. It's different from the books, but, I think it's different in good ways, and I think every time it's on, people are just happy to get back into Will's world, and I'm just super pleased with it.
It's great to hear you say that and to know that you're being treated in this way, that as this really important resource. And that's probably why the show is so good, because it feels so real. The characters feel so authentic. I mean, really fleshed out.
Well, part of that is that they're really good writers too. I mean, I've given them the source material, of course, but they have to interpret that in a way that makes sense on television, and that's a real talent to be able to do that. So I'm just really grateful that Liz put together this team that is able to keep telling these amazing stories.
And do the shows actually get filmed in Georgia?
They do, yeah. They've already started up because I think that they're going to start airing new episodes in January of next year. So they've already gotten a head start on filming, or writing, and getting the sound stages put back together and scouting all the locations around town. So it's really just wonderful to have them so close by.
It sounds great. And so do you ever go to the set as they're working on it?
I have, yeah. I don't want to be there too much because they're really working. There's like a couple hundred people, and they're doing all kinds of jobs I don't even know about or understand. So I don't want to get in the way, but I've certainly felt very welcome when I'm there, and it's really cool to see the different sets. And I got to meet Betty, Will's little dog, the Chihuahua, and she's just adorable. And everybody loves her. She's so spoiled, but. It's really nice to have that sense of being welcome.
Oh, which is great. It sounds like a really wonderful relationship, collaboration, and so it makes me feel even better about watching the show, which, it's like we watch the last one of the season and we go, oh no, we have to wait months until the new season starts. But that's because it's so well done and it's so good.
Yeah. And I've read the first script for the first episode of the season, and it's really fantastic. I think people are just going to love it.
Well, we felt like we were left on such a cliffhanger, of course.
Yes.
As
I can't tell you anything, but I'll tell you, trust them. They know what they're doing.
I respect that, of course. I don't want spoilers. It's like I can't rush to the end of the book. I have to read it as it unfolds, as though it were life. So.
Oh, absolutely. I'm the same way.
Yeah. So, again, you are an incredible writer and just have such an amazing point of view as you unfold this for us. The other thing, Karin, is I just love the way, or appreciate your bringing in Will with his uniqueness, with bringing in his dyslexia and seeing how it is a gift and how it's treated, and being authentic and how some people treat it and react to it, but showing how you can kind of, in a way, normalize it, I guess, or make it good.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I wouldn't frame it in a way that it was like a superpower, but I think that he has taken this issue that he has, which is a learning disability, and he obviously, as it's shown in the show and in the books, he was teased about it horribly as a child, and we get some glimpse of what that life was like as he meets a character in This Is Why We Lied from his childhood. But I think that he has managed around it in a very admirable way. And I think he's leaned into some of the parts of it that would not necessarily be viewed as a positive to some people. He's managed to figure out his own way in the world. And to me, that's what makes him admirable.
Yes. And I would imagine, as you wrote this, as you created his character, that you had that in mind as to how you would have him evolve and how this would work in his life.
Absolutely. Anytime I'm writing about someone who's struggling with something, I'm aware there are real people out in the world with these same struggles, whether it's writing about Will and his dyslexia, or, someone like Dave, who has had a really horrific childhood in this novel, and I write a little bit about that, or, just someone who is in a toxic situation with their family, which a lot of us, unfortunately, can relate to. So we all have our weird family members that we'd rather not run into at the family reunion. And you definitely see that happen with the McAlpine family in this novel. But I think that's an author's job, is to write about universal struggles. And so whether I'm writing about a place in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, or somebody's writing in Chicago or Louisiana or wherever else, not just in America but around the world, there's a universality to telling stories about family. Because everybody either has one, wishes they didn't have one, they create their own. It's just kind of part of being the human condition, is being attached to a family, either a birth family or a family of your own making. And I think I have always felt more comfortable writing about those stories, because who we choose to surround ourselves with tells us who we are.
Mm. And boy, we certainly get an experience of family in this book, and This Is Why We Lied. It's that's a real trip that goes on. What I also appreciate is how you include the foster care system, because it needs to be discussed. I mean, as with anything, there's good and there's bad, and we get to see the bad. And I've appreciated having that view, because I think about, so much of the homelessness I see on the streets here in the Seattle area, and think about the young people and how they probably have come from some sort of broken family foster care system. So I have an appreciation for that, and I thank you. I think this is a really important aspect, important topic in the whole series.
Well, I think anytime we have a situation where someone is unhoused, there's been a failure in the system somewhere, that we as a society need to address. But particularly with our foster care system, I'm very proud of my Senator John Ossoff in Georgia, because he has taken a lot of the state foster agencies to task for not doing the job that they need to do and not taking care of children. And, we've had children who have been lost out of the system. Fortunately, we're not as bad as Florida. I mean, they've lost thousands of kids out of the system. They literally don't know where they are. And, it's really, I'm not particularly a religious person, but I do know from growing up in a religious household that how we treat the least of us reflects the best of us. And I think it's really horrific that we're not treating children better in the foster system, that we're not putting the money and resources. I mean, there are very dedicated, good people in these systems who are donating time, who are not fairly compensated for what they do, and they try their best. And every time we do a state budget, we just pull more and more resources away from them. And, let's not forget that one of the main reasons why a child might end up in foster care is the crime of poverty. Mm. Their parents don't have the money or resources to help take care of their children. And if we would support these families and support these individuals who are trying their best to raise their kids and give them opportunity but just don't have the financial wherewithal, we could really end a lot of issues we have with these state agencies by just supporting children in a way that keeps them in their homes and keeps their families intact. And we know from all kinds of research about children in foster care and children who are in the system that as adults they are more likely to need support from their communities. And, from financial support to many children in foster care end up the way Dave does in the book, where he's repeatedly had negative contact with law enforcement. They're more likely to struggle with depression, with substance abuse, and you think, wow, if we could just spend a little money on them when they're children to help them have a better life, then we wouldn't have to spend millions on them as adults, when it's, in many ways, when it's much more cost-effective to do it when they're children.
Isn't that the truth? How out of whack, out of balance that system is, how what we spend on, well, actually on the prison system, the penal system, versus
Yes.
if we'd started at a young age, which would take less funds. Yes, it certainly is just what, like head-banging kind of
Yes.
situation. Yeah. So this is so important that you bring the subject for us to have that opportunity to think about it, to have a conversation about it, so that it isn't just, shutting our eyes to it, or just kind of is sweeping it away and saying, well, it's their choice kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's really strange because no one would choose that, and we do know that there are workable solutions. I mean, and it's just really, to me, a choice that we've made as a society to let this continue, when we know from all around the world that what works best, what doesn't work. It's not an intractable solution. What's intractable is, we're Americans. We're very puritanical in many ways. We want to punish people we think are making quote unquote bad choices for themselves, or frame something as a moral failure, when actually it's something that's on all of us, that we haven't prevented this from happening. And I would just say, that's why I'm such a huge supporter of libraries, because something as small as budgeting a library so that kids have a safe place to go can make a huge difference in a child's life, and can turn them into adults who have the resources to succeed.
Oh, I'm glad that you said that, Karin, because I also have worked at in the Seattle Public Library system, and I'm so aware of how youth in particular, but really all ages, really express their appreciation and the value that they get. And sometimes it's, in many cases, it's been the launching pad for their careers, be it in the library system, but whatever, they just get that input and support.
Exactly, and Seattle is so lucky. You have such a wonderful system there. You have huge support from your friends of the library. So and your libraries some of them are absolutely beautiful. And I remember touring there many years ago, and I got to Seattle, and I thought, okay, well, it says I'm going to a library, and I thought it would be downtown, but we got in the car and we drove an hour to these beautiful, beautiful woods, and it was, cold, and we get to this library, and it looks like just this small, squat building, and it's got a wood-burning stove, and there were 100 people there. Oh. And they were all there because the library had put together these programs to bring in authors, to engage people in reading, and to really bring the community together. And it was such a sweet, sweet thing to do as an author, to meet all these people who are passionate about reading and who live in, I'm being honest, like the demographics, the economic demographics were a lot lower than they were in downtown Seattle, and they love reading. I mean, I think that's such a universal thing that people don't often think about, is the passion for reading doesn't know an income level. It doesn't know a demographic. It's like there are so many people across the board who just are really passionate about reading, and I think it's important for us to go and meet them where they're at. And no one does that better than a librarian working at your local library.
Oh, yes. There's just that, there's a passion, but there's just that real deep feeling of wanting to connect people with the printed word. Of course, now it's not so much on a paper page. In fact, I ended up reading This Is Why We Lied digitally, which again, actually, in a way was great because it was right there on my phone and readily accessible at any moment. So whether it's paper, whether it's digital, it's just so critically important.
Absolutely. And we know so much about children who read, connecting, making connections in their brains, like physical connections that help with logic and reasoning, that children who don't have access to reading never develop. So it's just such a fundamental human right to have access to a good book and to a good library.
Because books may not be available in the home, but here, all of it is available for no cost. It's probably one of the last great free things that we have in our society.
That's right. Let's not let anybody break it. Let's keep supporting our libraries and keep them open so everybody can have a chance at the American dream.
Because it's true that there are areas of this country where the funding is just being withdrawn. Libraries are not being supported. So, and that is what your foundation is all about, right, Karin?
Correct. It's called Save the Libraries, and what we do is we make block grants to library systems, and they can do whatever they need. You know, they can buy blankets for their unhoused population, they can paint the building, they can do a reading room, they can do whatever they need to do in order to support their community. Because, I mean, honestly, that's the point of a library, is to be there for the people who need it most.
Well, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being so passionate about that and having this foundation. And thank you for your passion for writing and creating these amazing stories that let us just kind of bounce off into another universe, if you will, and be entertained by trying to figure out who did it, who's responsible here. Again, you have such a talent in being able to do this.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to talk to you always.
And for people to know, this book is going to be out later this week in a couple of days and available at all of our favorite book sources, right, Karin?
That's correct.
And to connect with you, your website, that's a good place to go, right?
It is. It's KarinSlaughter.com. That's Karin with an I, or I'm on Facebook and Instagram.
And are you working, I bet you are. You're working on the next book, or next books, plural?
Yes, I'm working on the next one now. It's going to be out next year. It's a standalone, but I'll go back to Will Trent after that.
So on that note, since it's not a Will Trent, the writers for the series are taking components from various novels and creating their own scripts. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. They get to pick and choose whichever ones they need and that suits the story.
Well, between the two of you, between the writers for the series and, of course, with your books, which, again, are amazing, I am just so grateful that you are who you are and have these visions and want to put pen to paper. Or no, it's do you do it by typing it out, by doing it on your computer?
Yeah, I do everything on my computer.
Yeah. Well, how you do it, it's just really such a gift to us. We're certainly, I'm going to speak for the broad majority, grateful for the books, and I can't say enough about This Is Why We Lied. It just really is a page turner, great entertainment, and so thank you, Karin Slaughter, for your work, for your talent.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
That brings us to the end of a very full hour of Inspirational Women with Karin Slaughter and Sunday Morning Magazine with Gina Craponi. I'm Kate Daniels, your host, and I greatly appreciate your sharing this hour with me and these special guests. For details you might have missed or information you'd like to know, please just send me an email, kated@warm1069.com, and I will get right back to you. Also, if you'd like to listen again or to share these important stories with your family and friends, find the podcast on our Warm 1069 webpage. Just click on the Listen tab, then Podcasts, then either of the show names, and then look for the guest names. I now wish you and your family a day of good communication and sharing and finding the good medicine for your needs. Have a week of the same, and then please plan to join me again next weekend for another hour of Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women on Warm 1069. Good morning.